Classroom of the Elite Season 3 Episode 8 is here and we're almost done with Volume 10. I say almost because we're likely going to see the final and most insane moment of this volume next week. Unless they straight up skip it, which would definitely be something. Though I do have to say, even though the light novel is way better, the anime did manage to surprise me considering how much time they had to jam 120 plus pages. But there's still quite a bit of cut content to get through. So let's not waste any more time and dive into the cut content and changes for this episode. Starting off, we have quite a funny cut line from Yamagod himself. During the beginning of the class discussion when Horikita is pressing Yamauchi, Yamagod flexes his looks while comparing himself to Koenji. Next up, the entire discussion was narrated by Kyo, but in terms of the actual discussion, almost every single line made it into the anime until the Hirata moment. In the light novel, instead of kicking the desk, Hirata straight up flips the entire desk, plus the light novel makes him seem way more cold and unhinged, to the point where Chabashira and even Ayanokoji himself were shocked and found it hard to believe. And even though Horikita was arguing with Hirata, Kyo noticed that even she was shaken up and scared by Hirata during their entire discussion. Also, the major difference during this scene is that we have some context as to Hirata acts like this because of his monologue from the beginning of the volume. I'm not gonna spoil you guys since they have to mention it at some point, but I'm genuinely mad that they didn't show it before his breakdown, as it makes the scene so much freaking better. After the discussion, we actually get a Ayanokoji group scene. After Kyo leaves the class, the rest of them follow him and they're genuinely angry for him seeing that so many people were going to vote for him. Kyo tries to warn them that they might get targeted if they stay close to him, but all of them don't care and wanna stay by Kyo's side. It was such a wholesome moment, so it really sucks that it got cut. After that, all of them go to a cafe to discuss some things, and some of them wonder what's gonna happen during the exam. After they leave the cafe, they notice Hirata outside of the cafe, sitting alone on a bench looking lifeless. After thinking that Hirata was likely waiting for him, Ayanokoji goes over to talk with him. But before approaching him, he actually takes a photo of Hirata and sends it to Kei along with a message. Hirata first talks about how cruel this exam is and how he hates the idea of losing someone. Then asks Kyo, can he leave it all up to him, asking Kyo to lead the class from now on. Kyo denies his request and tells him if he wants to protect the people in his class, then he has to do it himself. Then tells him, why not vote for all three, Horikita, Yamauchi and himself, then leave the rest to the class to decide. Hearing this, Hirata talks about how he was approached by both Horikita and Yamauchi. Horikita asking to vote for Yamauchi and Yamauchi asking to vote for Kyo, and appreciates Kyo for not throwing anyone under the bus. After that, Hirata stands up and says that he thinks he has found an answer and leaves after thanking Kyo. After that, we move on to what the other classes are up to. Class D and B scenes had some small changes. Instead of meeting with Ryuen outside, Ibuki actually goes into his room late at night, where she encounters him half naked. Ryuen also asks if Ibuki came to spend the night together before he gets expelled, naturally making Ibuki extremely angry. And during the Class B scene, instead of everyone acting like NPCs, Kanzaki tries to ask Ichinose about why Nagumo agreed to lend so many points and what he wants in return. And even though Ichinose isn't allowed to tell anyone about their deal, she does tell them that they will most likely disagree with her if they do know about it. Then we have the Class A stuff, which was way longer in the light novel. We first start with a flashback to the day the exam was announced, and literally 5 minutes after the exam was announced, Arisu tells the entire class to vote for Katsuragi. To which, aside from Yahiko, all the remaining 37 students agree, displaying her control over the entire class. After classes, Arisu gets a call from Yamauchi, and Kamuro lets us know that they've been talking to each other almost every single day recently. And Kamuro also gets disgusted, thinking that Arisu is serious about dating Yamauchi. Arisu then asks Yamauchi if they can meet up in person, so they decide to meet at a karaoke bar. And they were also joined by Kamuro, which made Yamagod sad because he couldn't be alone with Arisu. They first talk about lovey-dovey stuff, with Arisu acting all cute and shy for Yamauchi, which my girl Kamuro was repulsed by. Then Arisu tells Yamauchi that he should try to expel someone in their class because she doesn't want to lose Yamauchi. And to put the nail on the coffin, Arisu tells Yamagod that she has something very important to talk about after the exam ends. So now, we finally move on to the exam day. Before the voting starts, Hirata stands up and apologizes to Horikita and then tells the entire class to vote him out, naturally leaving everyone shocked and Horikita being completely against this, to which Hirata replies that he already hates everyone in the class and doesn't want to stay here anymore. Everyone is mostly silent after Hirata is done talking, but of course, Yamagod tells everyone to vote for Hirata since he's asking for it himself. After that, Chabashira arrives and then the voting begins. But before we get the results of Class C, we switch back to Class A. The entire Class A section was way longer compared to the anime, with lots of details and context missing, but they did at least show the bare minimum. And after that, we finally move on to the results section for Class C. First up, Yamauchi thinks that Hirata will be expelled, to which Koenji replies that it won't be Hirata, because last night, everyone in the class received messages that Hirata will try to sacrifice himself and asking to not vote for him. Hearing this leaves Yamauchi and Hirata shocked, but Yamagod reveals his secret plan of getting praise votes from Class A to survive. Hearing this, Koenji presses Yamauchi and asks if he at least has a contract with Arisu, which leaves Yamauchi dumbfounded. After that, Chabashira arrives with the results of the vote. The results were obviously the same, though Hirata looks much more shocked and defeated when he ends up at second place. And here is where Kyo mentions that he was the one who spread the message about Hirata's sacrifice by using K. The line also tells us how many votes everyone got. Kyo ended up in the first place with 42 praise votes, which leaves literally everyone in the class shocked. Yamauchi ended up last with 33 criticism votes, Sudo at 21 and EK with 20. Aside from that and cutting a few more moments of Koenji going off on Yamauchi, this scene was adapted pretty well, though the anime completely cut out the post-result classroom scene. After Yamauchi's expulsion, there's complete silence in the class and everyone coming to terms with the fact that one of them is permanently gone, and Hirata in particular looks the most devastated. Slowly, one by one, everyone leaves the class. After Koenji leaves the class, Kyo actually calls out to him and tells him that he never expected Koenji to help the class. Koenji replies that of course he'd help because he was at risk as well. But Kyo says that Koenji intentionally acted extra harsh towards Yamauchi so he'd only focus his anger towards him. Koenji thinks that Kyo is reaching and they decide to leave it at that. It was such an amazing Koenji moment, so I'm sad it got cut. After that, Horikita rushes out to ask Kyo how much of this scenario did he expect and see it coming. Kyo thinks that Arisu probably wasn't targeting him at all and did everything just to expel Yamauchi. That's why she left so many hints, such as approaching him out in the open. After that, Horikita asks him if he was the one who told Manabu about Arisu and Yamauchi, to which Kyo doesn't reply once again and walks away. Then we get to see the results of other classes. Ichinose had the highest praise votes in the entire school at 98, Arisu was first in Class A, and Kaneda was first in Class T. I'll genuinely be surprised if any anime onlys even know who that is. Then Katsuragi and Ryuen come to look at the results, and they're both surprised that they managed to survive. Katsuragi also looks defeated after losing pretty much his only supporter, but then he makes a face that surprises both Kyo and Ryuen. After Katsuragi leaves, we get the flashback with Ibuki and Ishizaki, which was also longer in the light novel, and a lot of banter and Ishizaki and Ibuki fighting with each other got cut out. We also get a lot more details about the plan and Kyo being glad that Ibuki chose Manabe to expel because it would make Kei happy and make her trust him more. After that, Kyo actually gets a call from Ichinose. They mostly discuss the results of the exam. Then Kyo asks her what she would have done if he and Nagumo weren't there to help her. To which Ichinose replies that she either would have expelled herself or the class would have drawn stakes and left it up to luck. Kyo thinks that her class was the only one where something like that could have worked and respects Ichinose for managing to create a class like that. Then he gets a call from Arisu, which is where the episode ends, leaving the final chapter of the volume for the next episode. And that is all the cut content for this episode. I'm not gonna talk about my thoughts on the episode in this video because I'm planning to make a video on how I feel about the volume 10 adaptation. So subscribe to the channel if you're interested in that, and consider leaving a like on the video if you enjoyed it. With all that being said though, have a nice rest of your day and hopefully see you guys in my next video.